Why are you doing this, Ron DeSantis? In the United States today, the political and social environment lacks the initiative to change things for the better. The government fails to recognize the important priorities of the future generations of its inhabitants. For example, the healthcare system, the government debt, and the politics. But the greatest example of what America lacks is the art of reforming and innovating its educational system for students' needs. The educational system lacks many things, but HB 1557 has shed light on a new issue. Ron DeSantis just recently signed the HB 1557, also known as the Parental Rights in Education. It makes it a law to adopt procedures for notifying a student's parent if there is a change in the student's services or monitoring related to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, and the school's ability to provide a safe and supportive learning environment for the student. This explains that if a student doesn't have a religious entity, a third party, or a responsible parent to go to discuss issues relating to themselves, they essentially have no one to go to and solve a given issue that any student is facing. HB 1557 has seized the rights of students and jeopardized the mental health of both majority and minority students. Although the bill has some great respect for limiting access to inappropriate books for young children, it has most definitely limited its students' ability to retain privacy and support over complicated life issues. HB 1557 inherently violates children's privacy rights by allowing the school to disclose the students' issues to their parents. And in some cases, it leads to discrimination and actions that will negatively hurt a child. It is said that at least 1 in 7 children has experienced child abuse or neglect in the past year in the United States. This is likely an underestimate because many cases go unreported. And in 2020, 1,750 children died of abuse and neglect in the United States, according to the CDC. There are 81.25 million children ages 0 to 18 years old in the United States, meaning 11.6 million of them have been abused or neglected. It is self-evident that not all parents are great, and this law makes it impossible for students to get help for themselves when potentially they are being abused or neglected by their parents already. Nevertheless, a study found that homosexual and bisexual men reported higher rates of child emotional and physical maltreatment, including major physical maltreatment by their mother or mother guardian, and major physical maltreatment by their father figure. In contrast, homosexual and bisexual women, as compared to heterosexual women, reported higher rates of major physical maltreatment by both their mother and their father, according to the National Library of Medicine, which gives us another perspective on the bill. Some privacy issues contain issues with the student's sexual orientation. This bill would expose their sexual identity and orientation, which in turn cause more instances of child abuse and neglect because of a child's sexual orientation being discovered. This bill has a significant impact not only on the well-being of children, but also on the right to retain privacy regarding their more personal issues, particularly if their parents neglect or disvalue them. This is why it should be our inalienable responsibility as citizens of this country to protect children's privacy concerns and not expose them to outside sources they do not trust or want to know in the first place. So what happens when a student gets overwhelmed with an issue but cannot bring it up with a school counselor or teacher because they will get exposed according to this bill? Well, in some cases, it leads to the child to want to harm themselves based on their lack of ability to discuss the difficult issues. As the issue builds more and more pressure on the child, it leads them to unnecessary actions to hurt themselves. There are approximately 20 million children, about the population of New York, in high school each year. And of those, the 2019 Youth Behavior Risk Factor Surveillance System shows that 18.8 or 3,196 of high school students seriously considered attempting suicide, and 8.9%, which is actually 1,513, actually attempted suicide, according to the American Health Ranking. Additionally, deaths by suicide are the second leading cause of death between the ages of 10 and 24, which produces approximately 6,488 deaths each year, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Not to mention, there is a huge increase in deaths by suicide as young adults ages 10 to 24 in the United States increased 57.4% from 6.8 per 100,000 in 2007 and 10.7% in 2018, according to the CDC. Given these statistics, we can glance at the set of students who were not able to get saved by the health agencies within schools. Nevertheless, schools counselors play an important role in ensuring that students have excellent educational experience. They are part of a school support team that provides essential social, emotional support in addition to academic support. And soon after this bill is in effect, children will be even more afraid to talk based on its potential consequences and cause the numbers above to increase significantly in the state of Florida. Not to mention the average student to counselor ratio in America is 464 to 1. That is nearly double the ratio recommended by the American School Counselor Association. This indicates that there are not even enough school counselors, the ones that are the support system for students in primary and secondary schooling. Furthermore, modern day counseling practitioners should be more innovative to adapt to current school counselors to be more the psychologists, which focus on the well-being of students rather than just being a guidance counselor. As counselors have to provide for not only normal students, but the 7.1% of children aged 3 to 17 that have been diagnosed with anxiety, or 3.2% of children aged 3 to 17 years that have been diagnosed to depression, according to the CDC. This shows that there is a great need for students to have a great environment, a safe environment to discuss common and diagnosed issues that they face daily. So how does this affect minorities? Well, specifically, if we examine LGBTQ members or minorities in that matter, we can begin to understand there is a great decline in educational scores, academic performances, and higher chronic sadness relating to the well-being of a student. According to a school climate specialist at West Ed, she shed light on why LGBTQ fall behind in schooling. She says, if you don't feel accepted, you have to hide something fundamental about who you are, or are scared at every step, you obviously won't be fully present and immersed in learning. Furthermore, a study focusing on LGBTQ students reported that LGBTQ students report that their main reason for dropping out of high school is the constant bullying and harassment from other students, according to the American Psychological Association. This shows that if there is a group like the LGBTQ, there are much higher rates of having issues with their life. As such, these students will need to access a support system or service that's already in schooling to help them provide a safe environment for learning. HB 1557 prevents most of these minorities' children to access that because they fear prosecution and oppression from their parents. This bill takes away the golden ticket to secure a safe, fair, and positive learning environment for 14% of LGBTQ students in our schools. Students in schooling face not only social issues with their peers and parents, but also political issues like HB 1557, which limit their ability to express themselves in a safe manner. It is reported that if these LGBTQ students had the same school support as their peers, the same access to high expectations, the same positive relationships in schools, the same experience in terms of lower victimization rates, for example, their outcomes would be dramatically better. LGBTQ students, or minorities for that matter, are just one example of the groups that will be negatively affected. But once it begins to spread to other groups and soon everyone. A wise man once said, neglect starts as an infection, and if you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease. And when neglect leads to another, and the worst of all is when neglect starts to diminish our self-worth, our self-confidence, our self-value. HB 1557 not only allows neglect to happen, but it opens the door for further legislation to not only in Florida, but throughout this country to be passed. For example, just like the Black Codes and Jim Crow laws, these laws sought to limit African American rights. HB 1557 does the same, but instead of African American rights that are taken away, it is students' rights being taken away. Students are the only ones directly affected by education. So why don't we have the opinion on something we do 180 days, 5 days a week, 7 hours a day? A long hour-long standardization test. So why are you doing this, Ron DeSantis? Why are you neglecting our children's opinions and concerns? Why? Thank you.